real quick, I guess, like, as we've already gotten started, I would love for you to tell people who you are, what you do on Instagram, what you do in the fitness space, because I mean, I've been a fan of yours, like, gosh, like when you started competing, was that 2020? Am I like so
21. Yeah.
21? Okay. But yeah,
Uh, this is like when you get asked to sit up in class and tell something about yourself. I'm Brie. I've been competing since 2021. I started being coached by my boyfriend in 2020 when we first started dating, Sam. And I went pro in what year was that? 2023. And yeah, I coach online full time. Love my girls, so if they're watching this. But yeah, that's what I do. And then I get on Instagram and I yap about whatever pops into my head. So my Instagram's kind of, there's no niche really.
I I like your Instagram because it resonates with like I've been on Instagram since 2015. That's when I started posting my fitness journey, which yeah, I want to throw up calling it that, but like it was always important to me to keep it still a personal profile. Like even once I got into coaching, I was like, I want to be able to come on here and still have relationships with other people and like share parts of myself that feel very specific to me and not feel forced to like entertain or like, I don't know, hit virality, which I don't even think I can. I don't think I'm cut out for that. And I see that so much in yourself, like in how you post, like you're one of the stories that I like follow consistently. I would say I feel like I see your story, like, every day, which I'm very pleased with. I'm very happy that Instagram feeds me that. Um, but the thing I like about it is, like, you don't just encompass the highlights. I mean, you've had a lot of success in the sport, but you're very honest about where you're at, it seems, at least as, like, a fan, as a viewer. You cover the hard days, the hard seasons. You cover the things like when people comment negative shit to you and Sam, but like to you, you just scorched earth and I love it. Like you just pick it apart. And I think, I mean, I think it's important to be able to do that and to like stand up for yourself publicly. But I think it also encourages other girls that like, hey, like this is a real part of being online and speaking your mind and having opinions that don't resonate with everyone. So I think that's great. I think you inspire a lot of people. But when it comes to really like the path you've paved in wellness for yourself, because I really I feel like watching your journey, you've been honest about like it's going to take a while for me to grow, for me to make leaps and bounds in the space as a competitor. I guess let's go back to when you decided to compete in wellness. And that was, I guess, was there ever consideration around bikini back in 21?
No. So I did 2 shows in 2015 in bikini. And I say that very loosely because I shouldn't have been on stage. Let's just put it that way. I had just barely started in the gym. So I stopped competing because I wanted bigger legs. That was kind of why I got into the gym. I was always very petite. I was 5'6" and I was walking around at 120 pounds and with no muscle whatsoever. And I was just like, I want bigger legs. I want bigger glutes, and that I guess I thought competing wasn't for me anyways. So I just started lifting and had fun with it. And they brought wellness to the States. And I was like, I want to do that. That's the look that I already want. I want to aim for that. And um, I had a lot of people telling me to do figure instead because my upper body grows very well. But I also didn't necessarily want that for myself. And if I'm going to compete, if I'm going to put myself through everything that you need to do to be a competitor, I wanted it to be for a look that I wanted for myself. And I felt like there was finally that option.
I I want to touch on that decision to not go figure. What were, I guess, what was the thought process? I mean, you and Sam, did y'all talk about it in the way of like, hey, like this is where you are now versus where you would need to be? Were you already in the mindset of like, okay, this is the body I'm committing to in and out of season?
Mhm. Yeah, I guess that kind of went into it. I knew what my off seasons would look like when it came to how my upper body would look. And it just wasn't necessarily something that I wanted for myself. And we definitely had that talk. And I love figure. I have so many girls that I know that compete in figure and they are absolutely beautiful. And I never want that to come across the wrong way. It wasn't something that I felt fit my goals for myself. But yeah, I actually remember we had the talk about it because we were at the gym and I was training with him because I trained with him every day. And I overhead pressed I think it was the 60s or it might have been the 70s.
Jesus. Okay.
And I finished my set and he had been spotting me. He came around and he was like, okay, so is figure like off the table? And I was like, yeah, I don't want to do figure. And he's like, okay, I'm cutting your upper body days. You're done. So yeah, that was like the determining factor.
Yeah. I mean, I think it takes a lot of um, awareness from you and Sam to be able to really differentiate between how you enjoy training versus what happens if you train this way for the next 5 to 10 years and you chase something competitive that even at baseline, like it's going to take a lot more muscle. And I mean, like it's ironic because this is very much my decision. I did wellness in 2020. Like that was my first comeback show. It's actually, I didn't know you competed in 2015. So that's when I competed for the first time. I did 2 shows in 2015 as a 19-year-old. I was told my legs were too big, like don't grow them anymore, which I'm like, okay. Like I was tiny, like I had no muscle. Um, but when I came back in 2020, I did bikini and wellness at the same show at the Cal State. And I got the overall in wellness. And I mean, like, I tell people, I'm like, yo, it had to be so dark. Like, even my pictures at ISO, like 2000, like, it was just so dark. I don't think they could actually see me. And like, the competition at that time was just very sparse because of COVID. And then because of the amount of girls, like, kind of on the fence of like wanting to go wellness or not. And I was actually coached by a good friend of mine, Andrew Walker, and he's just so game. He's like, whatever you want, like national show, like because I won the overall in wellness, but then I got second in my bikini class. I'm like, well, that doesn't make sense. Like, okay, I can't be both. Like they're completely different divisions. But at the time it was still like taking off and still becoming what now it's become. Um, and that was the question that like Andrew and I, we were kind of going back and forth. He's like, you know, you can build your legs, like you've never tried to build your legs, but like, is that the look you want in off season? Because he knew, and I'm sure many listeners can relate to this, that like you're walking around not your leanest. You're walking around much heavier and even at a healthy body fat. If that's not where you want to sit in the way you want to like dress up your body, then that can be really hard. And it already is so hard letting go of the leanness that we achieve for stage. But then to also, like for me, like I've always been self-conscious about my legs being too big, which is silly. I say it's very silly. It's unnecessary. But at the time I was like, I don't think I can make that commitment. So let's go bikini. But I love that you had that support out the gate that like, hey, this is on the table, but it's more than just the commitment of like doing well on stage. I'm sure you could have done incredibly well, but I love that like there is a division that really felt more like you and you could find a home in. So when you made that decision, I guess like when we look at 21, because you did you compete in nationals that year as well? Okay, let's dive into that. What was that like? Because I mean, I think wellness had been around about a year, so we were starting to see some really good growth. The girls who were winning, I mean, like generally I would say like now the level of competition, it's so much denser. I mean, 3 4 years later, 4 years, I can do math, I promise. uh what was that like, that first national show for you?
Uh Nerve-wracking. I I remember I saw the girls on stage and I was like I was backstage with Sam and I was like, this is a mistake. This is a mistake. I shouldn't have done this. And he was like, shut up. You're fine. Um, it was really nerve-wracking, but the girls looked great. It was so my first year of competing, I thought I was done. I was going to quit after because I hated being on stage. So it's kind of hard because like when I think back on that first year, like I don't really remember being on stage. Like I remember bits and pieces, but I remember so I got third at that show And I was like in shock. And I thought that I was like, there's no, I remember like they called my number and I was like, you know, but physique wise, like when I look at like my conditioning at that show, it kind of makes me laugh because there's no way that that would do well at a national level now. I would have gotten dead last. I would have been smoked. So,
I can definitely resonate with the nervousness on stage. That part has always been the hardest part for me to tolerate about it. I very much like the process of it, and I like the things that you can learn about yourself. I think it's like I wouldn't even call it like masochistic, but like it really does demand a level of like radical honesty in what you suck at, like the prep itself. And like the stage part, it was always something I'm like, you know what? Like, okay, I got through like getting super lean and I got through all these hard days. Um, I can I can just disassociate through the stage part of it until I make it something where I can enjoy it a little bit more. And for me, that was always something like as I got deeper into the pro league, I was like, I gotta figure this out. Like I gotta figure out a way to like get through it and not like psych myself out because physically there are things that happen when you're so nervous. So I guess like now being at the point because you did that first pro show in 23, is that right?
last year, 24.
24. Okay. So, I mean, that's a big time off stage. And I mean, like, I guess that's something like I've always seen, from my phone, I've seen like your journey, but I guess I really want to understand. You get off stage, you get third. I'm sure you're happy about it, but there was probably that realization like, okay, now we've got work to do to be competitive as a pro wellness competitor, with the girls getting bigger, with them getting harder. What was the conversation, the game plan after show, after that, after the show when she turned pro?
So I actually went pro in 2023. I messed that up. But I went pro in 2023, and then that was actually in between that show and my pro debut was my shortest off season. And that was one that I actually really wish I wouldn't have rushed. The in between my first season and then 2023 when I went pro, I had a year and a half. And
I messed that up. My bad. No, that's still, yeah, that's still like a good amount of time to be like, no, we're putting on tissue. So I assume like in that time, like I remember seeing your videos, like it was very intentional that year and a half, right?
yes, I had to be okay with being softer. So, I went through the whole reversing out and putting on body fat and being okay not having abs and all that when I'm watching people dive back into prep 6 months later, and you kind of have that like fear of missing out type of thing. And I it was like it doesn't matter because I have to be eating XYZ. I have to be eating enough to sustain my training because it was like I've never run an off-season cycle. And so it was like, okay, like my training has to be painful. I mean, it should be anyways, right? And so don't think that I'm saying that if you take anything that you're not, but I felt like I had to it had to be even more perfect because I didn't have anything enhancing what I was doing. Um, but yeah, I think the first like 8 months of that was like kind of hard. But then after that, like I kind of just settled into a good mindset around it. Once you get over like the body dysmorphia of coming out of prep, I felt good. My training felt good. I was focusing on strength over everything. And it was like if I'm getting stronger in the gym, I'm putting on tissue. That kind of helped me stay focused and not stress over how I was looking necessarily. So that helped.
Yeah, I mean, like you put that so beautifully. Um, there is that initial, it's almost like an identity loss that happens when you go from being so lean to not being so lean, which is still very lean for, the average person's standards. You're still getting compliments. Your family's still probably a little concerned about you, like, please eat, please take care of yourself. But for you, you're like, yeah, but I was just like 5-10% leaner. Like I was much leaner, and it can feel like you're almost undoing work. But it sounds like you were able to accept that and see, okay, well, this is the cost of being more competitive, which is something that I know for my clients, I'm sure with yours as well. Like it takes a lot of buy-in when someone does that for the first time, and when they're first motivated to be like, I want to put on like serious muscle. I want huge legs. I want a huge ass. I want like things to be so like undeniably dense that the next time we're in prep, I don't have those same struggles. So when we look at 21, were you using enhancements at that time?
Yes, that was my first cycle, is that prep. Um, I ran 30 mgs of Primo a week. So
Okay.
I just did.
That Yeah, I mean, super conservative too, and, like, I think, I remember I had a wellness competitor who came to me from the Brazilian team, and she was on, like, as an amateur on multiple compounds, in the hundreds as far as, like, each one in the hundreds for the weekly load, and she came to me saying, she's like, "I know I need more muscle. I know I don't have the thickest frame, and I have a lot more to fill out, but I don't want to do this in a way that I end my career very quickly, because my femininity is very important to me. Like I like singing, and I like the way that I look. And as I get older, I know like my face is going to change, and I don't want to lose certain aspects of it." And I remember I recommended, I was like, obviously I didn't medically recommend, I just suggested if it were me. Um, I would start with 30. And she had had a bad experience with Primo, which it may not have been Primo. I don't think it was, but um, I recommended Mastron. And I remember that dose. She was like, yeah, this feels a lot more comfortable. I can feel the enhancement of it. But I don't feel nervous. I don't feel like I'm having those weekly changes that I was having before at such a higher load. So when we look at like that kind of exposure, and then even I guess moving into that year and a half to then become a pro, what did that look like in terms of decision making for you? Because obviously Sam being your boyfriend, I'm sure you're able to be pretty candid with like, hey, these are the lines I have. Or I guess really I should ask, not assume, did you have specific things you're like, I'm not willing to sacrifice this?
Yeah, for sure. I didn't want. I feel like I already have like I always have allergies, I swear. But so I feel like I'm like, I don't want to add, I don't want my voice to deepen. I know that, steroids age you. I don't want to prematurely age just for a trophy when I don't feel like it's necessary. But I never necessarily had to voice that to Sam, because to him it was just like, yeah, of course, and for him it was like he wanted to see me do well, but it wasn't about what it did for him as a coach. It was, he wanted me to do well because he knew I was setting out to do this. So it was never like, I have to push this on you so that you can go pro quicker and it will look good for me as a coach. And I I know that a lot of girls deal with that from multiple coaches in the industry. And that was never something that I didn't have to set those boundaries. When I went into, so I didn't run anything that off season, and then I went into prep and I leaned out a bit, and then we implemented Primo again, and we still didn't take it over the 30 mgs. We just left it there because I responded well the first time. So for us, it was like, we already know that you'll respond well. What's the point in adding to it? You know?
I love that. And that's I mean, it's such a commendable thing for yourself to be in a position, although, yes, it's your partner, but like to be in a position where you feel safe, and that the understanding is unspoken almost. It's like, hey, like this needs to be done at the appropriate rate, even if you're willing to take a little bit more risk, which I often find I'll have girls that they do voice. They're like, I'm okay with certain things changing. And even then, I'm like, but I have to be okay being the person that's like overseeing this. I have to be okay with like the potential changes you might not know could happen. And if you were to continue, I almost think about it in this lens, like if someone were to leave me and do this cycle repeatedly over the next 5 years, what would that look like? Like, do I want them to ever wake up and think like, man, I wish Cory had been more conservative? And it sounds like you're in a really safe environment that was really conducive with your longevity in the sport, which I tell so many girls, like, regardless of division, you need to be in a position where you feel like you can communicate your needs if it's not already understood, but you can also have discourse in a healthy way and let your coach know, like, it's fine if this takes a little bit longer. But even to your last point about, like, you responded well, like, we don't need to fix something that's not broken. I love that so much because the culture around, like, okay, let's stack compounds or let's double the dose for double the return. I'm like, I wish it worked that way. If it did, I mean, like, yeah, like these things, they work and like they're gonna feel good. It's gonna be way more fun to train on these things. But at the same time, like, it's not a free ride. And I think you both do like a really incredible job voicing the importance of training and the dedication, the intention that's needed in these phases, whether it's off season or in prep, to ensure that like you're getting the most out of them.
Mhm. I I think when you look at competitors and you even enhanced ones, the ones that are training the hardest and that are focusing on getting stronger, they always see more out of it. And I feel like if you're going to be taking something that you are running a risk while taking, why not be getting as much as you can out of it? You know, I've also seen people take these enhancements and they don't apply themselves with their training and they don't see anything out of it. And to me, it's like, so it was all risk, no reward, when it could have been reward with a little bit of risk, you know? So that was something that I wanted to avoid. It's something I want my clients to avoid. Um, I don't know. I want them to get the most out of it, you know?
Yeah. I mean, and I almost look at it, I'm like, if you use this correctly, like, I'll say for I wanna say for bikini, maybe a bikini in 2020 or 2022, but, like, there's only a certain amount of muscle you need. Now, I feel like it's just a never-ending chase, but, like, especially for these upper divisions, like, the level of muscularity that you need, like, once you have the muscle, there's going to be less of a need in some ways. As I'm saying that, I kinda, like, am talking myself into a corner because I do think in these other divisions, like, there is even more of a need to retain that tissue and maintain it. So there's a higher demand there. But even then, it's like, it's kind of like investing. It's like, okay, the more work you do up front, the longer this is going to go. And like the less, I don't know, the, I guess, more decisive it's going to come, it's going to be like once you're in prep because that tissue is going to be there. You're not going to have that question like, is this tissue, or as soon as I remove this compound, is it going to go away? And that's it's a hard conversation to have. Like I just spoke with a client yesterday about this because she came to me with Anavar already in place, as a non-competitor who wants to compete maybe. And I was like, I don't love this already, but okay, like you got it in place. Let's just finish the cycle, I guess. But she asked, like, what are the expectations when removing it? And the crazy thing is, I'm like, well, you're going to lose weight. Like, whatever came on overnight, whatever came on that first week, that was like, I don't know, those vanity muscle. You're going to lose some of that. You're not going to be as strong and it's going to be a little rough coming out of it. But like the whole ideology I like to follow with a cycle, and like that's why I really wish I had had her start the cycle once we'd already established coaching, is that like we outpace that initial boost, that initial 5 pounds that comes on. Because like I've just used Anavar as far as anabolics go outside of TRT, and overnight it's like glory muscle. It's great. You feel so strong. And like, I think a lot of people, they fall into this trap where they almost like, they get a little cocky or arrogant about it. They're like, yeah, like I gained 5 pounds in the first week. And it's like, girl, I promise some of that's going to come off. And like, we want to minimize the amount that you lose and that drop off and end a cycle, post cycle, but there still is going to be that. So like, if we're not doing all these things in cycle, if we're not making the most of it, then it was just like a joyride. It was just like a cool period of training, but it wasn't actually advantageous and effective by definition, in the sense that we didn't put on any muscle, which Um, I guess I want to go back to the build itself to get you to that pro physique. You said training was a huge thing, eating was a huge thing, committing to like softening and like moving away from a super shredded physique. What aspect did you struggle most with? Was it mental, the nutrition, the training, the recovery? What was the hardest part for you?
Um, Probably outside of like the body image thing, probably nutrition because I had to eat so much food. I think my carbs were, especially that first off season, I think my carbs were pushing 500 grams a day. And then, some days he would bump them up for like legs or whatever. And it's like, yeah, some days were great, some days I was starving, but then there was other days where it was just like, I cannot eat another fucking bite of food. Sorry, can I swear on here?
Oh my gosh, yeah, you can. Yes.
Okay, good. But yeah, that was sometimes I was really mentally challenging because I would be like nauseous. I'm so full. I'm so uncomfortable, and it's like going to train when you're uncomfortably full. I'm like, am I just gonna throw up? And I would try and like, you don't eat an hour and a half before. I'm making sure that my food's digesting, but I was just so uncomfortable all the time. It got a little bit better my second off season because I didn't necessarily have to push as much food, but that first off season, it was like you need to grow, you know. So
Totally, totally. And my boyfriend Jordan, we went through a build together last year, and like his output is just so high. The way he lifts, he's so strong. He's burning so many calories. Like yes, in session, but it's the damage the recovery needs out of session. And like for him, he would lose at like 3,800, which is a lot. Like it's a lot of food. And we did this for him for about 16 weeks. That was about the time I ran my build too, and I mean, he put on like great like inches on each like it was like 6 or 7 inches on each leg. It was so dumb. But towards the end, he's like, I feel so bad. He's like so traumatized from it, or like how uncomfortable he had to get to sustain that amount of food. It sounds really cool, but especially if you commit to it and it's something that you're like, hey, I'm eating healthy foods. Like I'm eating foods that are nutrient dense, that are actually supporting better training and like keeping all of my systems in check. Like it's a lot. It's a commitment in itself. And it's like, I don't know, it's kind of the same if you have straight hair. You always like want curly hair, vice versa. It's like the grass is always greener. And I know for him, like we had to get really creative. I weighed in. I did not coach him. Like he's very much self-coached, but like even just like encouraging him, like I think if you get the food up, like I think I think you can put on a lot of size and strength, which his goals are largely strength focused. But towards the end, it was like going into sessions, just like I can't do it. Like this is like I'm miserable. I'm going to bed uncomfortable. And like I think for a lot of people that is like, okay, the limit. And knowing that it's like even more so if that's where we're going to like punctuate the build, we have to make the most of it and we have to get really fucking strong like throughout this phase. So I guess when you turned pro, how did you feel during that pre-show, those last 4 to 6 weeks? Like was it apparent how effective that off season was to you?
yeah, it I I was like shocked that I looked the way that I did. Like it didn't feel real that I would do like side by sides and it was like a totally different person. And yeah, it was very surreal. And it was like almost like I felt like my like eyes were like playing tricks on me. So I like stopped looking at my check-ins. Like even if I didn't I didn't hate them, but I was like, I think you're like, don't get overconfident. You know what I mean? Like it I remember asking Sam, I was like, is this real? Like, I feel like I'm making this up in my head right now. Because yeah, I didn't think that your body could change that much in a year and a half almost, so
No, and I mean to do it the way you did, it's incredible, and it's a big like pillar I try to teach my clients because I had to learn it myself. Is like strength largely is going to correlate. Like you're not going to get you're not gonna get very strong if you're not adding tissue, and if you get really strong, like, there's gonna assuming you're eating and you're recovering enough, like, you're gonna be adding tissue, and it's something I think for a lot of people, they resist so much in our sport because it's fucking hard. It's fucking hard to keep getting stronger and to continue to, like, fight for every increase that you can or that you need to. So, I guess coming out of that pro show, what was that process like? Like, I mean, you sorry, not pro show. It's the afternoon for me and I should have caffeinated better. Coming out of turning pro, you said you took a really short off season. What was the amount of time between earning your pro card and that first pro show?
Um, let's see. It was a little over a year in between both shows. So I did Junior Nats, so that was June, and then I did Legion, and that was September of last year. So a little over a year, but I think I was only in off season. I mean, including the reverse, I was only out of prep for 6 months. And yeah, that's like my one off season where I was like, I think I fell into the pressure of, everyone's like, just see where you stack up. Just you got to get on stage and see where you stack up. And I kind of fell into that pressure a little bit. But I mean, realistically, like I can look at my stage shots, I can look at my check-ins, I can look at the girls on stage and know where I stack up and know where I need to improve, and I should have just done that. Um, but I was like, "No, I wanna get on stage," and Sam was like, "Are you sure? Do you feel ready?" And, he was like, "I think that you could do very well," but I got in my head really bad that prep, and it was like I could not bring my stress levels down, and we would push the show back, and finally I was like, Legion is like the last one I can do. And I had been on Primo, and I was like, I felt like if I didn't do the show that I like did that cycle for nothing. And I think I also got into my head about that, and I didn't want to waste it. So we live and we learn. And then I came out of that show and I was like, I'm taking at least a year and a half off. I'm going to grow again, and I'm going to do it the way that I know and that I'm comfortable with. And then, whatever comes from that next time I get on stage, great. But at least because I think like before I went pro that show, that prep, I felt so calm. Like it didn't matter the outcome. I felt very proud about the progress that I made and what I was able to do in that year and a half. And so it was like, if I don't get my card, it's fine. I'll just continue prepping until either I feel like I need to pull out or I get my card. And I was just very at peace. Like I struggle with anxiety really bad. But I didn't have any of that. I felt very good. And yeah, then going into my pro debut, it was like totally different. I was a mess. I was just, yeah. So I think for me and myself, like with competing, it's like I need those longer off seasons to feel like I've done enough to justify getting back on stage.
I relate to that so much, and I think that's a little bit of what I fell into this past year as I kind of reached after my last build, I reached like think about 152, which is a lot for me. And even though it was good 152, like it was still like, okay, I'm ready to start a fat loss phase and I like to get back on stage. Like I feel like it's been enough time. A lot of why I didn't compete had to do with being in nursing school and just feeling like it's not really worth doing two things not to 100% because I made this commitment to school and like I need to see this out. But once I got done with school, I was like, yeah, like let's see how this goes. And like it was right around that point where I was close enough, but I still wasn't close enough where I was like, I'm not really comfortable seeing this out the additional 10 to 15 pounds. Cause even if I use enhancements, I don't think I'm gonna have the muscularity to put myself through that. And um, really the stress management is something like I feel like I've come out of shows and sometimes have been smooth sailing, other times it's been really hard, and I think, like, even looking at like, am I prepared to go through that identity loss of being as lean as I need to be? Am I willing to take time away from work? Am I willing to make those sacrifices right now when I have a lot of professional responsibilities I've committed to? And the answer just, it became like, the more I paused and sat with that, it became clearer and clearer to me. And, through talking with Jordan, I was like, I I don't think I have it in me to see it out at this point. I don't think it's gonna be in my, best interest, and it largely has come from doing the opposite, where I just forced myself into that show that I wasn't ready for, where mentally I was not in it. And I mean, it's brutal to already be in that state where you don't feel grounded. You're not. I mean, like I'm just speaking from my experience. I wasn't anchored to anything, and then to know it's like, okay, that post show is going to be that much harder from this, and I'm just going to be hit with that repeated regret of like, why did you close that gap? Why did you cross the finish line just to say you crossed the finish line when there's so much more to it that I need to feel satisfied as an athlete.
Mhm. Yeah, that's exactly it. And I and that was 100% me. Like, it was just nobody. I could have told Sam, "Hey, like, I don't think I can do this," But in my head, it was like, if I quit, I'm letting him down. I'm letting myself down. I'm letting all the people, my friends that believe in me and that have supported me through this prep, but when I was done, and kind of opened up to Sam more about it, and like we had more talks, and he was like, "You never have to feel that way." Like, I think I just, it was like, you have to finish it. You started this prep, you have to finish it. But the only way to finish it is to get on stage, and yeah. And then my reverse was really rough because I kind of just like mentally beat myself up about it. And it took me a while to pull myself out of that, because I even think like I was just like, what is the point? I'm dramatic. What is the point of competing ever again? Because look at how this one prep went. So it was it was a mind fuck. I definitely know. I know now that if I ever feel like that again, I will just call it and not push that, because it didn't do any good.
And I really want to build off that because I think it does in a lot of cases for someone so competitive like yourself and driven. You almost have to, I don't know, take the metaphorical L and be like, okay, well, I needed to see this out, but now I can confirm it's what I thought, and like it ended the way I probably knew it was going to end. But it takes a lot more maturity and like, I want to say self-respect, self-love to be able to make that call beforehand and be like, no, like I'm not going to force myself to do this if it's not conducive with me actually being better and like seeing out these goals I have with competing, which is to do my best and to bring my best. And at that point, like I know in my case, when I could feel like, okay, I'm forcing myself to do this and I'm not bringing my best. So what am I doing this for? Like, what am I getting out of it? Just to stubbornly say, because I'm the same way. Like, I'm very like very definitive, matter of fact when it comes to that. I'm like, okay, so why am I hiding in this like absolutist type belief? Like, why does it have to be all or nothing? Why does it have to be you finished or you didn't? Like, no, there's context to how you finish. And I think that's something that like a lot of listeners who are interested in the sport, interested in getting on stage, or maybe are in the same position. They're like, I don't know what to do. Like the right thing feels like the wrong thing. It feels like pulling out of this show is giving up and self-abandoning. But in reality, when you get on the other side of it, you might actually find that like that was the best thing for you. That was the most compassion you could show yourself. And I love that like we're going there and like you're sharing that because it does take a lot of vulnerability. And I guess when we go to post Legion, what was the game plan after that in your camp? What was your mindset? Because you said like it was a real struggle in that like that post show phase.
Um, I think the game plan was just to find my love for training again, because I that was something that really took a hit in that prep, and something I noticed is I didn't have the enjoyment that I normally do. Like, everything that I usually like about prep or just bodybuilding in general. I was like, I don't give a shit about any of this. Like, and so coming out of that, it was just, he he was just like, we're not setting a game plan for when you're going to get on stage again. And he's like, I just want you to find happiness in what you're doing. Cause he's like, I know, cause I was like, I hate training. I hate training. I don't want to do it. And he was like, I know that this is not really how you feel. I know it's how you feel right now, but it's not the truth, you know? So my game plan was to just get back into, luckily, the way that I like to train is it builds a physique that I need for stage, right? Like leg days are my favorite. That was another reason I picked wellness, because I like training legs. So it wasn't like I necessarily had to like change anything I wanted to do there, but it was like, just go in. My training, it was like, go in with my favorite movements, and I would do sets of 8 to 10 so I could just go heavy. And it was just like, make those sets as heavy as possible and do that, and then you can be done. And like at first it was just kind of mindless, I felt like. It was just, I went in, shut my brain off, I did what I needed to do. But then I slowly kind of found that enjoyment again, because it was like, oh, I'm progressing in strength. Oh, I got an extra rep this week, and oh, I added a plate, and I kind of just like slowly found my groove again. And even then, I still was just like, I don't know if I will compete again. So I think it wasn't until about the summertime that I started feeling like that like little itch, it was like, oh, well, I could maybe it doesn't sound so awful. But even that, so now I guess the game plan is like Raw is doing this like transformation challenge in January, and they want their athletes to participate in it. So I was like, well, I'll do a cut. It's been a little over a year at this point, so I'll continue pushing and I'll do a cut in January. And so we're going to lean me out and see where my weak points are. And if my weak points have come up enough, then maybe I'll see how a show looks next year. If not, then I just go back into off season and continue growing. So that's kind of the plan right now.
I love that. And I think there's a lot of merit. There's a lot to be gained by approaching the fat loss phase open-ended and almost using it as like, hey, like I think it's time to be a little bit leaner. It doesn't have to be punctuated with me getting on stage, but I need to do this in a way that like isn't just like strangulating myself and my body to a finish line. Like it needs to be something that's conducive with me sustaining like I don't even want to say habits because like I think you have the habits there whether you're struggling or not, but really that commitment to take it to stage, that last final push. I think that has to be like almost definitive for someone to kind of I don't know the phrase someone used for me when I was really struggling at the end of prep. She's like, you just got to land the plane. Like you're fine. Like I know in your head you feel like the world is spinning and you don't feel like yourself and you're not really attached to like those same goals because you're just in a panic, but like you just have to see it out and like you'll like everything you're feeling like it's a result of the state physiologically your body's in. It's not necessarily rooted in reality because this is not your baseline. This is a very like acute time frame. This is a very acute physique and it requires this. But I know for me mentally I'm very open with clients and I know some like they're like, is it really that bad? I see a lot of girls online. They say it's a cakewalk. They love being this lean. Like it's easy for them. And, to their credit, maybe it is. Maybe I'm just crazy and maybe everyone else is just way better at this than me. But I'm like, it's fucking hard. Like it's a big commitment to put myself in that state. And especially now, like scaling my business, having a podcast, like I do like 12 podcasts a month. And it's like that takes a level of cognition that like really is taxing at those body fats. And I get so frustrated on recording days when I don't have it in me, when I'm like not able to perform from a work standpoint. And same thing when I'm on calls. I'm like, these aren't calls where it's just like I'm a cheerleader and I'm like, yeah, like keep killing it. It's like I'm doing fucking lab work interpretation. Like I kind of have to know what I'm talking about, and I can't sound dumb, and I get really dumb at the end of prep. So it's like, I think even almost like making peace with like that's part of the sacrifice for me. It feels like I'm more anchored to like, okay, this is my why, and I can love competing and I can, love the process, but it's not a free ride. Like it very much is going to impact also things that I love and I enjoy doing. So when we look at really the evolution, because I mean 23, 24, 25, like we've seen some top wellness competitors, like we've seen some people rise, we've seen I guess I don't know, I should really ask this. Do you feel like the look has evolved? And if so, like what has been the evolution in wellness the last few years?
So I when you hit me up about the podcast and wanted to talk about like the evolution of it, I actually did some side by sides because I was like, what has changed, you know? Because I think that like when you're looking at all the competitors as a whole, the people that are winning shows, going to the Olympia, there's a lot of difference. And there's a lot of people don't necessarily agree on what the criteria of wellness should be. That there's a constant debate. But so I did side by sides of Issa and Fran from 2021 to 2024. Because they've kind of been our constants, you know, those have been our top two. Issa was top three in 2021, but you get what I'm saying. And I was looking at the evolution of their physique because for me, I'm going to look at the top. How are the top pros evolving? And I was looking at their side by sides, and realistically, for them, it's like, yes, their physiques have matured, and just with time, their leg development has gotten bigger. But the biggest difference is the glutes. If you look at their quads and their hamstrings, yes, they've come up, but the thing that has really changed is the glute development. So when I'm seeing other pros that are still impressive, still amazing physiques that are much bigger and much leaner, yes, they might win shows because they are the best that showed up that day. I understand that. But in regards to the wellness look that is winning the Olympia, that hasn't really changed, even with Eduarda coming in. I mean, Eduarda, we had the upset this year, and her look is very similar to Fran's. She's not huge. She's not overly lean. Um, So I don't think it has evolved as much as people want to claim that it has. It just kind of seems that way because of the rest of, there are a few competitors that definitely make it seem that way.
No, I know what she's saying. And like, it's a similar culture in bikini right now where you'll see people win a show, a local show, and I wouldn't even go as far to say it's a non-competitive show. It's an easy show, but you'll see the winners, and viewers will extrapolate. Media outlets will extrapolate and be like, "Oh, she won because of X, Y, and Z," and everyone says it, in a very definitive manner. But in reality, that was kind of like where my head went. Like I love the look that both Issa and Fran have brought. And I think Issa's transformation, maybe from her first Olympia, like the following year, she put a lot of muscle on her legs. But past that, like I would say it's been really consistent in their physiques. But yes, that glute development, it looks like they're just adding in some density to, I don't even know if I want to say like to create more balance relative to the wellness criteria, relative to their physique. But it very much seems like it can get lost in translation, what people see at non-Olympia shows, or not those big tier shows. And especially when competitors come out right and have very strong opinions about why they didn't place or why they did place. I mean, it can be very misleading to viewers and then other athletes as well. So I've heard maybe some of the similar remarks you've heard where it's like, oh, like wellness is just becoming outrageous. It's becoming, figure upper body and like it's becoming women's physique. And like I don't know if I would necessarily agree with that because like the shape is still very definitively wellness. Just those top physiques, they've made improvements where it makes sense for their physiques to maintain the division. They certainly haven't outgrown their physiques or the division criteria.
Mhm. Well, and I think a big thing that kind of throws people off is they're only seeing these competitors online. And one thing that really helped me was when I did Legion, there was like 7 Olympians there, and seeing them backstage, and it's like, don't they're still insanely impressive. And they're dense, but they're not mass monsters. But I think that sometimes people will see them online and they think that they are mass monsters. And I do see that being slightly problematic because I think that you have newer competitors that are thinking that they need to push for a look that isn't what they need and also requires more enhancements from them. And then they also are seeing people take shorter and shorter off seasons. And it's like, well, your favorite pro that's placing top 10 at the Olympia can take shorter off seasons because they don't need to grow as much. They are kind of just working on refining their look or whatever it may be. But I do think that social media has kind of misconstrued the look that wellness actually is.
No, I would completely agree. And then, I mean, it's a problem we see in bikini as well is that like a lot of athletes, they don't show everything, which I empathize with. I get that like, and especially the way I like conduct myself online, like I show what I would like to show, but like people who give me flack who are like, well, you should show yourself at your heaviest. You should show yourself, you should do like hard comparisons. It's like, I think I do a pretty good job showing when I don't like my body. Like, I think I do it more than a lot of people, or in a way that a lot of people don't realize is like, this is pretty uncomfortable, but still to the essence of like someone who already has that muscle, they might be able to maintain a leaner physique or what we even consider a leaner physique for periods of time, but it doesn't mean that they're not actively trying to build. And obviously, like levels of leanness that can vary, that can shift largely just based on how someone looks that day. Like it kills me to it kills me to see so many people be critical like when girls will go visit like the gym in Pittsburgh and like they're like, oh, she looks so soft and she's competing next weekend or in 2 weeks, and I'm like, yo, you don't have the context. Like if she just took a cross country flight and got zero sleep and is stressed and is on her period, like that picture can be like it can almost be a misrepresentation of where she's at. Like and I think it's really important. I was thinking about this morning with a different episode I was doing to like have that grace as a viewer and a fan of the sport to understand that like not everyone is going to exclusively show their highlight reel, and nor should we put that pressure to only commend people when they show that super freaky physique. Like, if anything, like commenting, talking shit, like telling people like, they're way off base. It's like you're only making it harder on that person to be transparent about the highs and lows. And within like a month, like I look at like my month, like around my period, I'm like, I get 2 weeks where I'm like, I can look like crispy. Even if I'm not super lean, I can look good and I can like it. And then 2 weeks, even if I'm shredded, probably going to have some turbulence, probably going to like debate whether I want to post that selfie or gym footage or whatever. And it's like that pressure of being on social media and having to be peaked, having to look stage ready. I think a lot of competitors, amateur and pros, get lost in that and almost feel like, well, if it's not impressive enough, I shouldn't post it or I shouldn't showcase like where I'm at. And then in turn, it like builds intrinsically because then you're like, shit, maybe I do look bad. Maybe I am really soft. And it's like that mindset, especially in an off season, especially someone like myself who needs to build muscle. It's like that can be compounding and make it really hard to stay in these intentional growth phases.
Hmm. I think too, it's like you'll post a picture of yourself that you're uncomfortable. You feel like I'm exposing myself here. I'm trying to be realistic with people. I'm trying to be open and honest and kind of just show everything. And because to them, you look fine, they take that as you only show the highlight reels, you know? And you're like, no, like I genuinely, I hate this picture of myself. Like, I swear, do I have to, do I have to look worse? Like, I guess I can go through, I'm sure I can find something, but yeah, or then it's like, they only want to see when you're lean, or there's just like not really a balance between it. It's like you have one or the other. It's like you're either not being relatable and open enough, or, well, we really only care when you're deep in prep and you look freaky. So,
Yeah, I mean, it's a lose-lose, and there's something almost freeing in that, especially if you as like a I don't know, person who puts themselves online and puts their body online, it's kind of freeing to know, be like, I'm not gonna make people happy. They are not going to like how I look all the time, and that's fine. Like, what's most important is that, like, I'm happy with the way I'm doing things. I feel like it's within the realm of, like, this is educating and is good information and is safe and not encouraging the wrong things. Um, I think, and this is so random, it just came to mind, like, because a pretty big pet peeve I have is when coaches, like, actively are, like, struggling with eating disorders, like, they're bulimic or they're, like, really deep into restrictive phases that they're not they're not shy about, but they're also, like, putting clients in similar positions with their protocols, and I feel like, I mean, ethically, like, the online coaching space has become something where, like, there is a lower barrier to entry to become an online coach, but I feel like almost like there's this responsibility to you yourself to know, like, hey, if you're in a state where, like, you're not good with yourself and, like, your patterns are almost like encouraging this kind of behavior, like, you just have to know people might see that and they might take it as, like, that's how I get on stage, that's how I get that physique. And I mean, like, that's a really general statement, I realize, but I feel like there is a responsibility when you have so many eyes on you to make sure that, like, you're representing yourself in the way that, like you're proud of and, like, you're okay with, while also understanding it'll never be enough. Like, social media is terrible, and, like, as much as they might be like, "Yeah, like, you look great, like, why are you only showing the highlight reel?" It's like, "Trust me, you don't wanna be inside my head, like, I gotta compartmentalize this, otherwise I would go crazy." So, I I guess when we look at the enhancement side for you, because, like, being a coach, I'm sure you also, I imagine you get the individual who comes to you who's ready to use enhancements maybe before they're necessarily ready to use enhancements.
yeah, I try to encourage people, especially like if they're a new competitor. You won't even know if you like prep. You might get into prep and absolutely hate it and never want to do it again. And I don't necessarily think that enhancements are like, when I made the choice to do a prep, it was like, I want to go pro. And that was something that I had set my mind to. And so it's like, I can understand if somebody's like, this is what I want and this is my goal, and I feel like I'm ready to utilize PEDs. And it's like, okay, like, I would rather help you through that versus you just like doing some random cycle online. But I try and have a very open conversation with them about how it's like, okay, are you okay with the possibility of coming out of your first prep and not being natural anymore, and also making the decision that you never want to do it again? Because I've had clients that have done one show and been like, that was fun, but like, I actually don't want to do it again. So usually people are like, okay, yeah, like, maybe I'll hold off. Maybe I'll just like see what it's like before I make that decision. But you do have sometimes the people that, like, they don't care. They want to run whatever they want to run, and they don't necessarily agree with the, I guess, like, conservative approach to it. And with those clients, it's like, okay, maybe I'm not the coach for you, because we're not seeing eye to eye. And I would never, if I'm not comfortable with what you are wanting to run, I just don't feel like I'm the coach for you, and there's plenty of other coaches that will work with you on that. And that's just kind of how I try and go about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important in your position. It's like there's an extent in which you're going to be comfortable being involved in this. Um, but at the end of the day, like what someone wants to do, like if they're dead set on like I want to be more aggressive than Brie you're comfortable with, it's like, okay, well then like just like if I want us to take this approach to training and you're very resistant, like this, we're just not compatible and that's okay. I just did a coachability episode like right before this on like it's completely fine to realize like, hey, this coach and me, like we're not aligned. And I think like just having that understanding that like where you're coming from, where I'm coming from in like in some ways dissuading or at least like having more thought and consideration put in before we pull that lever or implement all of these things. It's like I'm doing this because I think there's a real possibility that you might not realize the risk involved. And like I love that you touched on that. It's like a lot of people see the glam and the glitz with prep, but like being that lean, like it's costly and it's a big commitment. And especially for individuals who have careers, have families, are in like I talk about like the relationship dynamic. If you are in a position where like your partner doesn't expect you to need to be this selfish and you're not really comfortable communicating that, like it can create a lot of friction at home, and it's a good opportunity to have those tough conversations. But I know for some people, like I've coached them and they've been in prep, and drugs aside, they're like, my husband doesn't quite understand like why I can't drink with him 7 weeks out. Like I still have almost like this relationship obligation to do these things despite it directly conflicting with my goals. And like that always makes me so sad because I'm like, fuck, like I don't think you realize like what you're in. I still want to be respectful that like, hey, if that's the dynamic you're choosing, that's fine. But like if this goal is really important to you, I also want you to honor that and like have the opportunity and the environment to be successful. And if that's not with me, if that's in a different situation, or if that looks a little different than, you know, what I'm outlining, that's okay. But um, I guess to end on this note, I want to encourage people to tune into your content because I think it is very unique online. I think you're very vulnerable and you share a lot that many individuals online don't. Where can people follow you? Where can people tune into your content?
Instagram is probably best. That's where I'm the most active. I need to get my YouTube up and going. So hopefully YouTube will be up and going in the next like month or so. So, but usually Instagram's fine.
Amazing. What is your handle for listeners who want to search it right now and hit the follow?
It's Wicked B, and Wicked is spelled with a Y. So WYCKED.B.
Perfect. Brie, thank you so much for doing this. I really enjoyed getting to connect with you, getting to have some FaceTime. Uh, I am excited to keep following you. You guys, thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. And as always, I will see you in the next one.